Hello and welcome to another episode of Gaming Sundays. Today I wanted to talk about Firewatch. Firewatch was a game that I really enjoyed and I felt like, I had to do a review on it. So, it follows the story. It's a first-person game. It follows the story of a character called Henry who takes a job as a fire lookout in the Shoshone National Forest out in America. So that's sort of the story. At the start of the game, you get a choice-based sort of system where you get to make certain calls on what happens in Henry's life with his future wife. So life, huh, that's funny. No, so like things like what happens, like key life decisions, like do you ask her out, the wife, your future wife. Do you ask, do you do you buy a dog, uh, you know, do you do things like that. So it's sort of little trivial things, like a text. It's like a text sort of visual novel. Which I actually thought, funnily enough, when I first bought the game, I thought, oh, is this what this is going to be? I thought this was going to be something else. But the game sort of takes you from this text to a third person, no, not for first person sort of game, and then takes you back to the text narrative, then first person. So it goes back and forth. But yeah, so the story goes: you've taken the job as a fire lookout in the forest. You have a walkie-talkie and you communicate with your supervisor, and the supervisor is called Delilah. Delilah is quite a witty character. She's quite funny, and she's sort of your only companion throughout the game, and you can talk to her. You can, as you go through different things, you can make references to her. The game itself is very cool. It's unlike any game that I've played uh, with respects to first person game, and usually when it's a first person game, you're playing a game like a Call of Duty or um, I'm trying to think of any other game. Maybe like Bioshock, a game like that, a game where you've got a gun, a game where you're shooting. But this isn't like that. Firewatch, you have a lot of interaction with your surroundings. You can pick things up. You can read things, books, maps. Um, and you use your walkie-talkie. Your walkie-talkie is your main sort of communication device with your supervisor Delilah. The game is set in the 1980s, so that's that's quite funny. So a lot of the stuff is predated technology wise, but the game itself is very nice. It's it's sort of cartoony in a way. Um, I think that's what the developers were going for, but it's still really, really lovely. They capture the American countryside so well. I've seen a few videos because I was interested after I played the game. I thought I need to have a look. Is the countryside really that nice in that part of America? So I did a little digging, and I did see that the actual real Shoshone National Forest is is a real place, and it is as beautiful as the game predicts, which I really liked. I watched a video of a person who was videoing the surrounding areas, going through the nature parks and stuff. I thought that was really cool. I think it's part of its Native American. Native American land is owned by it, so naturally it is well looked after. The company that developed the game is Campo Santo. I think they're a newcomer to the gaming world. I don't think they've done many games before that. I know that they are working on a new project. I had a look at their website. I think it's like a game set in Egypt, with the pharaohs, Egyptology, pyramids, and so on. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm gonna check that out when it comes out. Um, Not to spoil too much, because that's not something I like to do on this channel. Henry is in the start of the game. You find out why he's taken this job as a fire lookout, because it's a bit of a lonely job, as I've said. Like the only contact he has is with his supervisor Delilah, who is in a different. So he lives in a sort of a radio tower, which he can observe the whole forest from, and the only other people that he can communicate is with Delilah, and she's on her own tower, so you can actually see her tower when you're in your tower, which is pretty interesting. And it turns from basic, first person game to a mystery, and you go from the simple job of looking after the forest, being a sort of gamekeeper, to trying to discover certain things that happen throughout the game. It's quite suspenseful at times. It's quite intense. I found that a lot of it isn't as exactly what it seems. Like, yes, it's a lovely game to look at. It's very well done when it comes to visuals, but it's more than just a quiet, happy little game. A little indie game. There is an element of disturbance and a little bit of a thriller, a bit of horror, sort of in the mix, which I really liked about this game. Um, I really enjoyed the interactions that you have with Delilah. So Delilah, like it's like a choice-based game, well, kind of like a choice-based game. So when you're speaking to Delilah, she will say something, and then you have like several options to respond to her. And your relationship with her, I've played through a few times, and the relationship with her can sort of go up or down based on the choices that you make when you speak to her. And both characters, Henry and Delilah, are quite witty. They're quite funny. So if you say something witty to Delilah, she'll say something witty back to you, and vice versa. So there's a lot of camaraderie in the fact that you're in complete isolation in the forest, in the woods, and the game is sort of takes a bit of loneliness. Henry is a lonely individual. Explores themes of loneliness, and throughout his journey, he sort of has a lot of self. He looks upon himself, looks in himself. Yeah, like he has a lot of self reflections throughout the game. So I really enjoyed this game. Um, I got it quite cheap on the PlayStation Store. It was one of these deals. It was only about £4, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna buy that. See what this is all about. And it just struck a chord with me. I got platinum achievement on the game, so that shows you how much I played through it. I played through the first time, done it quickly, and then the second time took my time, learned it, really got into the sort of feel of the characters, and I think the less is more. So there's not many characters. There's Henry, and there's Delilah, and there's other characters, but the other characters you don't actually really see them or interact with them. They just exist in the world, in this world of Firewatch, and I think that is pretty cool. And when you play the game, you'll understand why uh, there is so little contact with anyone. Um, the You don't get to see, well, you do get to see Henry in photos, so you don't get to see him actually as himself when you're playing the game. But there is a couple of photos that you find, so you have to see what he looks like. Um, there's a really quite funny interaction with Delilah where she draws you. And I'll let you find out about what happens when you see that particular drawing, depending on what you choose in the dialogue, which I thought was really nice. Overall, I'd give this a solid 8. Um, the story is nice, and yeah, there's a lot of twists and turns to Firewatch that you wouldn't expect if you just watched maybe like a couple of minute playthrough of it. You need to buy the game and really get stuck in to see it. But it's a beautiful game, and credit where credit's due. The developers aren't massive, but with what they've worked with, and the budget they've had, they've really pulled off a spectacular game. And if you're a fan of indie games, if you're a fan of that type of animation, then you're definitely going to enjoy it. Okay, thanks, bye.